grab her and French kiss her?
No, that's not an option here. If you had seen, that would, no.
I mean, just get them all at once is what I'm saying. Just get all the germs and get it over with.
So you're an extremist.
You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Lohman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Lohman.
Hey everybody, welcome to the House of Sunny podcast. We're back again with another crazy week with a million things going on in the news, right?
Yeah.
And last week, just a couple. Like a total takeover of the British government in plain sight. I don't know a whole lot about UK politics. We can get into that. I'm sure you probably know more than me. I'm curious to know your thoughts about All right, never mind. I'm curious to know your thoughts. Topic number 2. We could talk about the economy. I don't know. We asked last week if you guys liked our sort of rambling, no prep podcast, and people were like, I didn't know there was a difference.
So we'll take that as glass half full.
That's either a compliment or a total slam, because either we're super awesome, even when unprepared, or we are just always rambling and disorganized. But I think that a balance is probably good. I didn't come prepared today, except that I just, in my mind, I have things that I'm interested in. And there's just a lot of chatter about this guy that has now become Prime Minister of England and how he's so unqualified. He's super unqualified. And he was higher up in the Boris Johnson administration in the role that everyone's really upset about, what he did. And now he's Prime Minister, just chosen, not elected, you know? And they're saying
they don't elect the Prime Minister.
They're saying this is a WEF puppet. No, they elected Boris Johnson.
No. I mean, the public doesn't elect the Prime Minister. The party that wins elects their
right,
Prime
but
Minister.
They kind of run. I mean, they ran Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. The party did. He got it. Then when he left, then this woman gets picked. That whole 44, 45 days of Liz Truss, whatever. I don't even understand that. What the heck? Why did she resign? She just must not have the backbone, or whoever it was, they told her to leave.
Well, I can speak to that a little bit.
And then this new guy gets in, and he is one of the worst people. And he's been in politics. He's someone referred to him as a backbench MP. And he's just from a really wealthy, billionaire family. And he's part of the WEF and the Davos crowd. So he's just been appointed. It's really kind of insane. And nobody likes him. By the way, shout out to my friend. A friend of mine sent this to me. It's a diner cup.
That's
Cynthia.
Really cool.
Yeah, she sent this to me just to make me happy.
Is that vintage or is that new?
Yes, it's vintage.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
All right. So what do you want to comment on the Liz Truss thing? I don't know how interesting that is. I would rather talk about Kanye West. What do you think? We've been talking about him.
I want to ask you about something. Okay, hold on. Before you get into I want to get your opinion on something. So I go to the gas station to get my coffee. Have you ever had someone do this? Like you ask for a bag and it's one of those plastic bags that it's hard to open. And she licked her fingers. And then opened the bag. And I'm like, don't touch my stuff. Don't touch my stuff. And then she touched my stuff.
You actually said that to her?
No, I didn't say that. I was
in your head, you're like, don't touch my stuff. Don't touch it.
And then today.
What do you mean? She touched the things that she was putting in the bag after licking her fingers to open the bag.
She does this. Yeah. Licks her fingers, opens the bag, and then starts taking
with
my
those
stuff
fingers. Yeah.
Yeah. So today the woman was chewing on her nail, and I put the stuff down and I'm like, well, there's nothing. I'm not asking for a bag. So she chewed on her nails and I'm like, she can't touch my stuff. And at the last second, she reaches over to my coffee to twist it around to get the barcode, and she touched my coffee.
Oh no.
So I'm like, now I'm not a germaphobe,
Yeah.
but I don't like
That crosses the line for
I don't
you?
like people licking me. So I'm somewhere in between not wanting people to lick me.
I was just gonna
and a
say,
germaphobe.
You probably got some good, like, robust germs from that situation that are really going to help your immune system.
That's probably, yeah, I guess that's the optimistic way to look at
Yeah.
it. I ended up just taking the cap off the
Next
coffee
time, just grab
and
her
drinking
and
it out of
just
the cup.
grab her and French kiss her.
No, that's not an option here. If you had seen, that would, no.
I mean, just get them all at once is what I'm
Yeah, I
saying. Just get
guess.
all the germs and get it over with.
So you're an extremist. I think that's what your mind immediately goes to the most extreme. Just get it
get
off.
it over with. For me, that's how I get rid of fears is I just all in and then it's over and then you can just move on.
But
for me, it's simmering in the fear and the neuroses that drives me
just
crazy.
Proceed to worst case scenario.
Right,
so
exactly. Proceed to the worst. And then when it's over, then you can just go on with your life.
But this is why
I want the crash to happen. I want the financial crash to happen so that I can just move on and stop worrying about it.
You know what? I'm that way. I've always been that way too. Like I either just want to
rip off the Band-Aid.
Just get it done. Get it over with. Rather than the worst part is, like you said, it's wallowing in anxiety, anticipating something bad. It's like, no, let's just when bad things happen, usually it's not as bad as you think. But I think before COVID, would you have even been that sensitive to that? Like someone like licking a bag?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a new thing? I think it's a new sensitivity. Maybe. I mean, no, I can't say that because one thing I do when I get my drink at Starbucks, and this has been for years, one of my pet peeves when I was in college getting coffee at these little coffee shops was that a lot of times people would touch your lid. They're putting the lid on and they actually touch the part that you're about to put your mouth on.
Exactly.
As they're pressing down on the cup. And the worst was when non-Starbucks places, always some patchouli smelling person who would get their patchouli on your, like this nasty perfume on your cup.
I've had that.
And
perfume cup.
That would drive me nuts. It was so gross to me. But Starbucks must train their people. I've never seen anybody they'll touch the lid, but they never touch the opening where you put your actual mouth. So they get training, I think.
Have you ever gone to like Subway now or something where they're wearing gloves, to make the sandwiches? Like they actually wear gloves.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at a Subway and the guy, he's like making sandwiches and then he goes over to the door.
Yeah.
He goes over to the door.
Yeah.
And he opens the door. He's like doing stuff with his gloves. Then he comes back and he's like, blah, 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 starts putting like turkey and stuff on.
I see that in hospitals all the time.
Dude.
They were in the gloves. They're about, they put on the gloves. They're about to put something in your IV or something. They put the gloves on like they're supposed to. Oh, and then they go touch something with buttons that other people have touched, and then they do the things, and then they come back, and then I'm like, that's not sanitary anymore. I don't.
This is an old person thing though too, isn't it?
Like for me,
I never thought about this stuff when I was younger.
Don't wear the gloves.
Yeah, just don't wear
the gloves, especially if you're making sandwiches, because your hands are going to feel dirty, and then you're going to wash them more often. But if you have the gloves on, you forget what is on those gloves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're just touching everything.
Yeah.
I have the gloves. Who cares?
And you don't think, and you don't have the sensation that your hands are dirty. So then you don't wash your hands. I think the gloves make it less sanitary.
I love this.
And
this could be the greatest insight we've had on this show.
Might be.
Gloves make it less sanitary.
Get rid of the gloves.
I actually agree with you.
It's kind of like any government intervention wrecks your common sense thinking about it. So if you're forced to wear these gloves, then you're not thinking about the germs anymore. You're like, well, I'm wearing the gloves.
Did you ever hear about the seatbelt study they did that showed seatbelts were actually resulting in more accidents because
No,
people
people are
felt
less careful.
people are less careful and felt more invincible, and they were tending to
Interesting.
drive crazier. So yeah, that was a famous study. So
Interesting.
can I ask you one thing before you get into Conway and all this? Did you see
Conway?
the Fetterman
Oh,
thing?
yes. Oh, the
Dude,
Fetterman thing.
I have a different take on this that I
Okay.
want to lay on you. So I actually think, people are criticizing Fetterman for this like stroke induced rambling word salad
Mhm.
that completely and utterly, he was humiliated on national television. I actually think it was the most cogent presentation of leftist arguments I've ever heard. And I mean this completely in all sincerity. Like, has a better argument been made for like chopping off a kid's genitals
What did he
or
say
he said like
about
to
that?
take
And by
on to
the
make
way,
sure I push
just be
back against
careful.
work to
Just
work.
be careful what you say because again, with the censors, although I'm 5 days from being able to upload to YouTube, I still can't upload to YouTube. So
Mm. Well, is there a better argument for like suppressing free speech or throttling industrial civilization, um, or forcing experimental um, medicines, or any of the arguments for the left than this guy's rambling word salad? I mean, I haven't heard Kamala
I don't
or
understand
Biden
your
or
point. I'm
Pelosi.
trying to understand where you're going with this. Like you're saying that because it was so muddled, it's the right argument.
It's actually no, it's the best argument that's been made, relatively speaking. Like a stroke induced word salad is actually,
Better
I
than what
think,
we're getting from them normally.
yeah, yeah. Have you heard a better argument? I mean, did you hear what he was saying on?
Yeah, he
I
wasn't really
mean,
saying much of anything.
right. I think that's actually, and I'm just saying, it's a bit. This is kind of a
You're just
bit
saying
I'm
this is the
doing, but
best. This is the best that we're going to get from them.
yeah, I was actually pleasantly surprised by it
Huh.
because he was actually trying to make an argument for the
Oh,
left.
poor guy. Do you feel sorry for him?
No,
I don't either.
100%.
Normally, I would feel sorry for someone who had a stroke and couldn't speak or think. But I don't feel sorry for this guy. He looks, I mean, there's something to be said for a person's exterior matching who they are on the inside. This guy looks like somebody's like paid gun. He looks like a thug
Mhm.
and he's a creep. The way he dresses is creepy. Everything about this guy is like out of a casting call
No, he's like an
for
Ayn Rand villain. You know how people make fun of Ayn Rand for
worse than that.
her
He's a
villain,
he's a
her
cartoon
villains are too
character.
ridiculous. Yeah, they're
He
caricatures of
he's
evil.
literally a cartoon character. If you were drawing a thug, guy, that's who you would draw. You would draw someone like that, and they'd go, "Yeah, that's a cartoon." In real life,
And
it's
it's not,
nuts.
and it's bad enough that he looks like a thug. He's got a giant
What is this thing poking out of his neck? Is that what you were just going to talk about? We just lost you. We just lost Doug while talking about the giant thing poking out of Fetterman's neck.
really cognitively impaired, this guy.
We
I
just
mean,
lost you for like 30 seconds,
he
Doug.
is like
Can you hear
he is
me?
like a character.
Can you hear
Oh,
me? You were just
yeah,
gone
I
for
can hear
like 30
you. Can you hear me?
seconds. No, you started talking about the thing on his neck, and then we lost you
Yeah,
for quite a while.
he's got like a thrombosis or some sort of tumor on his neck.
Yeah.
And he dresses like he's 15 years old. Like he wears sloppy
Yeah.
clothes and sloppy shirts, and he's like the poster child for the left. And then you throw
Is
a
he the
stroke into
poster
the
child
mix.
though, or is he just like I think of him as kind of a same? Well, there's two things that I think of him as a bit of an fu. Like we're gonna actually elect this guy, and it's gonna be hilarious. We can do anything we want to you, smack in the face, kind of thing. That's how I see it. But um, somebody said that this is the new model of the left because they like putting in disabled people because they can control them. And it's worked with Biden. Have you seen this?
Mm-hmm.
Fetterman costume includes bald cap, goatee, and neck hump. I'm loving this Halloween meme. I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen?
I have
these?
seen. Yeah, I've seen a few. I
So
saw.
many good ones. I think I have another one on here. Wait,
Oh my God.
go back. We effed up. Look at this clown.
Wow.
He's so creepy. He is so creepy.
Yeah. No, he's like the Michael Moore leftist, like the purposely, intentionally
Yeah.
sloppy. He's the emblem of the left's vision of humanity. Just a sloppy, like thuggish, kind of
Yeah.
caveman character,
Yeah, he doesn't like you. He just grab your neck and squeeze. And it's just like,
Mhm.
oh, that's our politician. That's one of our statesmen. But so it's either or. It's either an FU or it's a, well, this guy is mentally disabled and we'll get him in and people can't blame him and they can't come down too hard on him because he's mentally disabled. And then, it's like a sheen of protection. And that whole strategy started with Obama. I remember when he was elected and it was like, oh, can't criticize him because he's black,
Yep. Yeah.
And so now they just try to pick anybody that can't really be nailed down to criticism due to some disability or some
So we're going to hire
protected
literally
status.
like mentally disabled people to run the government.
Well, because they're
then they
not
can't
really
be
running it
criticized.
anyway. Yeah, they can't really be criticized. And anyway, they're not really running it. It's the people behind the scenes running it anyway. So
I
it's not
did
like
hear
it
someone on
changes
MSNBC,
anything.
some pundit on MSNBC who was defending him said something like, "And Oz should be ashamed of himself."
I heard that too,
like, how dare you?
How dare you
like
debate a
this
disabled
guy?
man? Oz, I
This is
don't
where
like
we are.
that guy. I
No, it's
wish I
bad.
liked him. I want to like him. I don't like him. If he loses, it'll be his own damn fault for being a schmo.
But
So
is he
anyway.
better than Fetterman?
Fuck yeah. Yes. Don't you think?
Well, I don't know. The whole history of Fetterman's really interesting. He ran for mayor of this like small town.
Ran and won. He's been mayor of this little tiny town.
Oh yeah, he won, and then he just drove the town completely into the ground. It was like an already like post-industrial apocalypse. he completely like put the coup de grace on this town.
If I were one of these people who thought that it has to get worse before it can get better, I would want Oz to lose, but I'm not. I actually think that there's momentum created by this kind of thing. And I think
no, we don't want it to get worse.
think it normalizes this kind of thing. I mean, if you put this stuff in the Senate, then that will just be something people get used to. And you are what you surround yourself with. I feel that more and more as I get older. You are what you surround yourself with. The movies you watch, the shows you watch, the social media you read, the people you surround yourself with, that is what you will manifest or that is the vibe of your life. And the vibe of our government should be protected as much as possible. And I know Oz is just like a Romney kind of it's its own vibe that sucks, but it's less. We cannot have that cretin in office. We can't have this disabled. Like it's like we're getting used to Joe Biden, for God's sake.
Well, that's the vibe of talking about the vibe of the Democratic Party. Joe Biden has dementia. Nancy Pelosi, you've seen her brain freezes. She has dementia. Yeah. She's like a boozed out elderly person. And Kamala Harris is unintelligible.
Kamala, the creepy, laughing, weird dummy. She's stupid.
Dude, this is like
there's a country and it's over here. It's right next to this other country, and that country is a bigger country. That country is called Russia, and next to Russia is a littler country called Ukraine.
That literally, that's a quote.
The end. That's all I have to say about that. What'd you just say? I told you everything I know about it. She's terrible.
But to me, Did you hear her telling the military guys about the stars and the galaxies?
Oh my God, yes.
That was probably my favorite one because it's like so stupid.
That was
Like,
a hot
man,
mic too. She wasn't even like, you see her saying this stuff and you think, is she just like, this is her public speaking thing where she's being this other phony,
no,
weird
this is what
person
she
that
really
says stuff?
is.
And then there was this hot mic incident with her talking to those soldiers. And it was, oh my God, she just talks like that.
That's who she is.
Could we bring that up? Let's try to play that. Let's
While
see if
you're
I can
doing that,
find
you know, so, but to me, this is like, that when I was in the 80s and 90s, like the Democrat, like there were a lot of reasonable Democrats. They were at least adults. They were
Even Bill
articulate.
Clinton
They could,
comes
yeah, they
off
could make
as
an
freaking
argument.
reasonable compared to what we're dealing with today.
Totally. I mean, now we're at the point of literally electing cognitively impaired people. I mean, it's hard to believe. Do you remember Cuffy Meigs? I
Yeah.
think Fetterman is like a Cuffy Meigs character from Atlas Shrugged. She said that this Cuffy Meigs character was a thug in Atlas Shrugged, and he wore like a military tunic, and they said he had a rabbit's foot in one pocket and a pistol in the other. That's like how I
Yeah.
think of that's how I think of Fetterman, is just this like
Worse though.
a thuggish buffoon who's just like clamoring for the levers of power so that he can do his bidding. But like in a violent way, kind of like in a Michael Moore leftist Antifa way. It's just unbelievable.
I don't know if I can find this Kamala Harris thing. What would the keywords be? Korea,
No, I'd say soldiers, stars.
soldiers.
She was talking about a
stars.
telescope and how
Of course, they're not going to serve this to me because they're hiding it now, you know?
probably, yeah, to go to like an alternative site to get it.
Dang. Speaking of alternative sites, y'all, we are now on Rumble. And I put last week's podcast on Rumble. The channel is House of Sunny. The user name I put in there is Sunny Loman. I think it's at Sunny Loman. But people are saying they can't search for it. I went in and I edited my video and put tags in House of Sunny and Sunny Loman, and hopefully that helps. But we'll see. I'll look into it and I'll read how these search things work at Rumble and how I can maybe make it easier. I don't know why I'm not coming up in search. But I still can't upload to YouTube. Crazy. All right, I'm not gonna be able to find this quickly. So let's move on.
Kanye.
We have talked the last 2 weeks about Kanye, and I just want to make clear because I don't want to be misunderstood. I don't approve of racism at all. I don't think people should be judged, you know, on an individual basis by something that, like the hair color or their skin color or whatever. When I hear all the constant white racism out there right now, the anti-white racism, it really makes me mad. I mean, it's a real trigger for me. I remember in 2010 when the whole white privilege thing started kind of becoming mainstream. When it first came out, it was controversial. There was some seminar at the University of Minnesota Duluth, and this guy who was running the seminar on white privilege had written a book. He was a white dude calling for white genocide. And everyone was kind of talking about it. And there were these horrible posters with white people with things written on their faces in Sharpie, you know, like bad things about white people. It was so awful. And since then, it has just become, I mean, it's totally normal now to hate on white people. So this really bothers me. I don't really know anything about Jewish people. I don't think about people this way. I literally don't think about people according to their race. I do think about people according to religion, you know, Christians, Catholics, Jews. I think about Orthodox Jews versus regular Jews. Like these are all groups that I understand and think about. I think about Jewish people as mostly white people. I find it interesting that when it's convenient for Jewish people, they can't wait to fall over themselves and tell you that they're Jewish, they're not white. I mean, there are a lot of Jewish people that love to claim that victim status. Jewish people who want us to remember the Holocaust but won't defend white people from genocidal racism, talking, speech. I see that every day. So the other thing that I know about Kanye is, I'm trying to say this before we talk about Kanye because everybody is so freaked out about Kanye. I think that if you defend him, you're now being called a racist. Like you're literally, Sunny's gone down the rabbit hole of the far right to the point that she's now like anti-Semitic. I don't know that anyone has said that, but I can guess that people have said that based on just being like, okay, what did Kanye say? I'm kind of confused. Since then, he's done long form interviews with Piers Morgan, and the most interesting one might be Lex Friedman. I have not watched those yet, and I look forward to watching them. Did you watch those?
I watched some of them. Yeah. I watched parts of that.
Maybe you can comment on that when we get into it. I would really like to know how Lex Friedman handled the Kanye situation. But what even with him, what bothers me is this. I am daily surrounded by white racism. I'm daily subjected to hearing it, seeing it, it's everywhere. And my child deals with this. My white child deals with this at school. We deal with it on television. We deal with it with everything put out by Hollywood. We deal with it in the news almost daily. I know daily. If you turn on MSNBC, you're going to see anti-white racism kind of as a regular thing. And this is by white people and black people and Jewish people. Like everybody gets to hate on white people. White Euro people, Europeans, non-Jewish, European, white Anglo-Saxons, whatever. And nobody is up in arms. Nobody's canceling anybody over it. Nobody's having interviews on Lex Friedman about it specifically. And Kanye says something like, I'm Jewish. I'm going to go DEF CON on Jewish people. Like, I don't even understand, to be honest. And maybe we can look into that more. If I watch more interviews, I'll understand more what he said and why he said it and what he was trying to say. And maybe he's wrong. I mean, this is the other thing. Maybe he is being racist and maybe he's wrong. But I don't like the hypocritical treatment of him. That's what I don't like. Here's a guy. This is Kanye to me is an example of something we keep dealing with on the right. We're trying to defeat a really big, nasty enemy that is a communist or, oligarchic one world government takeover of our free country and our freedoms. It's already happened. Like we're living in not a free country. We're not in a situation where, I don't know, that we can lose allies. But at the same time, we do have to have standards. I do believe that. You were talking about, we need to be tactical right now. But we also need to be who we are. And I think about George Washington. This is going to be a little bit rambly, but I think about George Washington and how lucky we were to have him, because it really could have gone any way after our revolution. We could have ended up with a king easily. So anytime you're in a situation like we're in a pretty dire situation, and we may end up if we win this battle against these people, we may end up with our own form of some kind of dictatorship as a consequence, because we're just in that place in history right now. So on the one hand, we have to win because we know what that side is. That side is absolutely, definitely totalitarian dictatorship. We know that. Our side, there's a chance that we'll end up with freedom. So what am I trying to say about all that, I guess? I haven't watched the new stuff. I haven't watched Kanye's explanation. So maybe what I'm saying is wrong. But I saw that when Kanye started supporting Donald Trump in 2015, since then, he has been a target. They have been waiting for a chance to totally cancel him and do whatever they could to crush him. And it hasn't worked. And they've tried different things, calling him crazy. He said, I heard him say his family was destroyed over this. Post 2015, coming out in support of Trump, his family was destroyed because of that. And I mean, he's lost a lot, and he lost his bank account. And we're hearing now every news item is, if I look at a front page of Daily Mail, 5 of the stories are some brand or someone who has now canceled Kanye. Like, I need to know about every little one. Now he's close to school. Now Adidas has dumped him. Now this, now that, now this, now that. There's like 5 stories on any front page about what Kanye has lost today. And because of what he said in that tweet, that one tweet that is a little confusing, but everybody on the left gets away with everything all the time. And off the top of my head, I remember Nick Cannon, just off the top of my head. I'm not even like researching this or talking to people. Remember when Nick Cannon came out and spoke out against Jewish people on his podcast and said something like, if you have light skin, you operate on fear and you can't control the fact that you're a savage barbarian, prone to violence. In other words, white people, including Jews, are prone to violence and horrible because of our skin color, literally. Not because of our culture or but literally because of our melanin in our skin. Nick Cannon said that. Has Nick Cannon been canceled? I did like a little search. Do you see the MSNBC lady now?
Yeah. Fox News. Yeah.
Okay. Now do you see Nick Cannon?
Yeah.
Okay. So he says Black people are the true Hebrews and implied that Jewish people wanted to be like them. He said those without dark skin have a deficiency that historically forced them to act out of fear and commit acts of violence to survive. They had to be savage, adding that he was referring to Jewish people, white people, Europeans, among others. And he went on to say a bunch of stuff about
the
melanin.
Jews are wicked. Did you see that?
Yeah. The Jews are wicked, and we can prove this. So that's something he said. Now let's go over to his IMDb. Is he canceled?
Wow.
Producer. He said that in 2020. He's the co-producer of a series called Nick Cannon. He is an executive producer of this movie. He's an executive producer of this movie documentary. That's just producer credits. Actor credits. He's in that movie. He was in this movie, The Misfits. He was in this movie, The Masked Singer. He was in a movie called She-Ball. He's still doing his podcast. Nobody canceled his podcast. Let's see. He's been himself. He's been invited on The Talk since then multiple times. The Masked Singer. He's been in. Okay, this is
Isn't he the MC guy of?
He's the MC guy.
Wow.
If I Google whiteness, I get endless pages of people examining how crappy whiteness is. All right. That is racism right there. All of this is racism. I don't know what Kanye said, but all of this for sure is racism. And nobody's canceled over that. Nobody's bank accounts got canceled. Nobody is crushed in the media. We don't get a play-by-play of everybody losing their stuff. But we're getting that with Kanye. Why?
Because he supported Trump.
Because they're gonna show everybody you are not allowed to be Black and speak out. You're not allowed to have your own opinions. Like at this point, I don't care if he is racist. I want him to have free speech. I want to hear what he has to say. He seems like an honest guy. Let's talk to him. Maybe he needs to be convinced that he's wrong.
Yeah. Or maybe we just have to figure out what he's even saying. My disappointment with like Ben Shapiro and that whole um uh diatribe that Shapiro went on against Kanye, calling him anti-Semitic and everything, is I think it's the same thing with what you're saying, which is when you're fighting tyranny and you're supporting freedom of speech, the first thing you could say is he has every right to say this.
Yep.
We should listen to what he's saying. What exactly is he saying and why is it bad? If you think it's bad, give us your argument. But let's focus on not canceling people. That's the most important thing, is we don't cancel people. Culture as a cultural value, we don't
Right.
cancel people. Like
Right.
that's our value, is we have free speech and we debate and we argue rationally, we make arguments. We don't just attack people, which is what Ben Shapiro and that group did. Was they essentially joined the bonfire and threw the books in.
Right.
And just said, this is anti-Semitic.
His music is off. The Gap is saying they're going to sell his designs and not put his name on them. I mean, this is nasty. This isn't right. I don't care if the guy's a racist. If it's his fucking shoe, his name should be on it. It's wrong what they're doing. And you know, we used to like be taught about that proud moment where those KKK people got to walk down Main Street, or the Nazis or something, and the police were there protecting them. That was taught to me as something to be proud of in this country, that we protected even the Nazis' right to free speech. We protect even the racist right. And now we're all like, oh, well, his bank just threw him off and we're fine with that. And nobody is standing up in his defense because now they're being afraid to be called racist. So if I defend Kanye, I'm a racist. But I defend Kanye's right to be racist. Let's put it that way. If that's indeed what he is. But I honestly don't really see that too obviously. I don't know what's going on. He put on a White Lives Matter shirt. He defended white people against this avalanche of white racism when he put that t-shirt on. The next day, he's canceled.
Mm-hmm. That's why I don't like even the insinuation that he might be a racist, because he's obviously not. I don't even know what that term means anymore. What you and I think it means is different than, like, if in the left's view, if you're white, you are a racist by definition. So I don't even know what these terms even mean anymore. This guy is a intransigent defender, I think, of free speech.
I think he's freedom. A free speech. Yes.
And
you don't have to agree with everything he thinks. This is the messed up place we're in right now. If we don't agree with every little freaking nuanced idea of somebody's, then they have to go. And everybody on the right and the left are supporting that. And we're just terrified of anybody being different and weird.
Again, it proves.
Dang it. Lost you again, Doug. What's going on with our Wi-Fi here? Lost you again for like 20 seconds just now. What were you saying?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
What I was saying is, in the past, did you ever, I don't even like the idea of having to qualify things with, I don't agree with everything he says. Like, when in the past did we ever, like, if you quoted, like, I'm going to quote Nietzsche, I'm going to quote Aristotle or Socrates. Yeah. I don't agree with everything Socrates said, but here's a great quote from, like, it's like, that's an interesting point. I don't, whatever.
Right. And it used to just be like, let's talk about ideas and share ideas. Let's just do that.
No, because every person now is a symbol of their group. Yes. This is pure collectivism. Like, if you're white, you're just part of the white group, and you must be this. And if you're black or you're Jewish or whatever, you must be this. And this is the curse and disease.
And
of
honestly, if Kanye is saying that, who can blame him? That's what we're all bombarded with every moment of every day. That it's the groups that we're in. And so talk to Kanye. But it's not just Kanye. If he's going to be canceled, then everybody in Hollywood should be canceled tomorrow. Everyone in Hollywood should lose their bank accounts because they're all a bunch of racist assholes who've been anti-white for years. So I'm just over this. I'm over this. If he's on my team, then I embrace him, in a way. And I'm not seeing I don't really understand the Jewish thing he's saying. And like I said, I haven't really looked into it, but I'm not actually going to obsess. I can't spend my life also researching every little thing that every fucking person thinks or has said. I remember getting crap once because I retweeted some dude on Twitter, and then someone I had been friends with. Let's name him though. It was Robert Trzynski, an objectivist who is also a conservative, who got TDS so bad and became stupid because of it. And now he's just the biggest asshole online. Like, he acts like a leftist. We've talked about him before on here, but he sees that I tweet this guy, doesn't talk to me about it, but publicly tries to shame me. What has happened to Sunny Lohman? She's retweeting an anti-Semite, like a literal whatever. And I'm just like, what? Whatever I retweeted was not that. So it must be something else this guy said, but I don't know everything that guy said. And because I haven't done the research, can you imagine living your life like that?
Where like being a grievance archaeologist.
Yes. Where like, I just have to be like super duper careful who I quote or shake hands with or associate with, or I've done something wrong and deserve to be canceled and publicly shamed.
Especially like on a forum like Twitter, where you're just like going through like hundreds of thousands of images and tweets and retweeting people and stuff.
Right.
Like it would be like different if you wrote a book and, the book was, made some claim or something. It's like, okay, great. Come after me, argue, debate. But this was just purely like guilt by association, and let's trash you and shame you because of some I mean, this is a symptom of the underlying problem here, which is we are not thinking about truth and ideas and their correlation to reality. We're thinking about group membership, group association, which is a postmodern idea that there's no knowledge, there's no truth, there's no good and bad, there's no debate, there's no reason. All it is you're a white person, or you're part of some group that's oppressing the other group, and we have to tactically figure out how to stop you and thwart you and deprive you of your power over us by engaging in any sort of political campaign that we can muster to try and stop you and cancel you. And that's all it is. Everything's just a war of group against group, oppressor versus the oppressed. And you're either part of that group or you're part of that group. And
the group that I'm opposed to is the canceling group. The group that thinks for 1 second that it was ever okay that a neutral platform like any social media was right in deplatforming people because they didn't like their ideas. And banks who are basically government entities, throwing people, and we know now that the government has worked with Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, but did they even need to? Even if they didn't, before we were sure about that, I was against it. People, human beings. This is just not American. This is not American, and we can't get used to this. And again, the vibe of what we surround ourselves with. We've gotten used to Facebook telling us what to say, what we're allowed to say.
Right. Yeah, what they've done successfully is they've eroded the cultural value of freedom and free speech and free thought. And that's the predecessor to politically making free speech illegal.
Absolutely.
Is getting everyone to censor themselves.
We've been saying this for years. We've been saying this for 5 years, you and me, Doug.
Absolutely. And and so have people for hundreds of years because they lived it. It's like the first thing that happens is you start accepting that my ideas are harmful or offensive, and self-censoring in a way that's not appropriate, and accepting that connotation that certain ideas are beyond public discourse, or how dare you be a Republican, or how dare you support free markets or free speech or whatever you support politically. How dare you? And that once you start getting people that way, and you create a cultural milieu of self-censorship and people adapting to it, then it's simple to just say, well, let's just go ahead and make it illegal.
Yeah.
To be a Republican, or to be, to whatever, to have these ideas, because we already know they're bad. Look at everyone agrees these are bad ideas freely.
I just lost you again for like 15 seconds. This is really frustrating.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's me or what.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know what to do about it, because on the one hand, I don't support racism. I don't support, if Kanye is saying that all Jewish people are bad and that they're, money grubbing,
no.
Bad people who would steal the rug out from under you and are just materialistic pieces of shit. If that's what he's saying, I don't approve. I don't agree with that. I think that that's wrong and dangerous. But I feel the same way about, Black people every day are saying that about white people. So I feel the same way about those comments. And, but I'm not willing to throw someone under the bus who's courageous enough to wear a White Lives Matter t-shirt and support Donald Trump when doing so gets you called a white supremacist, and support Candace Owens, and who's so big and so famous and is willing to talk out against what's going on in the world. I think that he has encountered some Jewish people who are unscrupulous, but I don't think their race makes a difference. There are plenty of, Bill Gates, I'm just trying to think of like the WEF people. There are Jews involved, but they're not all Jews, It's like we're dealing with bad people from every race and every culture right now. So it's really just freedom people versus control people.
Yeah, I think that's the level at which to analyze it, is the idea that this guy is going out there and willing to take the slings and arrows for being a defender of individualism and independent thinking, makes him a hero. And if you don't like what he says, argue against it.
Is he a hero even if he's racist?
He's not racist. I don't even know what that means. Like, you'd have to give me an example, and then I would have to debate and argue it. I wouldn't.
Did he say that
label
all
on anybody.
Jews are bad?
No, not at all. Of course, that's not what he's saying. You can generalize about a culture or a group. He's in Hollywood. He's in entertainment. He's in media. This is a constituency in the world which is in media, in Hollywood, and in Washington, D.C. There's an Israeli lobby. There's a Zionist lobby. There's, Jewish people run a lot of major studios and music companies and blah, 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 blah. So when you're in that world, you're going to generalize about those things. And is he right? Well, let's argue about it. I don't know. I don't know what he's saying. I think he's making reference to it, and to the influence. I think that's fine. It's totally reasonable.
There is no
group. Way.
There's no group that is above criticism either. And
exactly, yeah.
I think I say that about white people too, although white people come from a lot of different cultures. But I think it's really funny when I used to really love the racial humor in the 80s when white people would be made fun of for being kind of like stiff and dorky. I mean, that's funny because it's kind of true and generally true compared to, say, Black people.
Yeah, like Eddie Murphy's white guy character.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. And he starts talking like this and he has this, he sits up a little straighter, like he has a stick up his butt. That's funny. So, and you could say something about European culture and European way of going about world domination for the last 1,000 years. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just saying you could, and you could say that, and it wouldn't be racist if it's not like my daughter's fault, because she's white. Like, it's not whiteness that caused any of that. So,
yeah, only white people have been warring with one another for tens of thousands of years. Just white people. That's it.
Right.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I think you can generalize about groups. And, but you just have to keep the context in mind. Like, you can generalize about lawyers or farmers or Republicans or Democrats.
But where does it get scary? Where does it get to where you're like, okay, now this is heading in a place that is gonna maybe harm people?
Yeah, I think I think if you say something that's untrue, if you try and incite violence against someone by virtue of their membership in a group, rather than understanding the particular circumstances. So if you say that guy is part of that group and that group is all bad, therefore we need to get that guy, that's when it's bad. If you said something like, oh, hey, the Israeli lobby in Washington is one of the biggest political lobbies, and we give hundreds of billions of dollars from Americans to the defense of Israel. Like, that's a real political, that's not anti-Semitic. That's just a fact. That's what it is. There's a Jewish religion. There's like a Jewish state called
There's
Israel.
also a culture there. There's,
of course,
but I would say too, there's like a New York Jewish culture, and then there's there's even different cultures within that culture. I don't know. I mean, frankly, I don't really know because I'm not like hip to that stuff. I'm just not really. When I interact with people, I'm thinking of them as individuals. When I look at what's happened to the Ayn Rand Institute, I notice that Yoram Brook is at the head, but I also noticed that Ankar Gate is up there. And so I got an Indian Canadian and an Israeli Jew, and like, who's to blame? I'm not even thinking it's their race that's responsible, or, it is what it is. There are Americans involved, Anglo-Saxon Americans involved in what's happened to that organization. So, I mean,
everyone has the potential to be an individual. I mean, if you're an individual, you have the potential to focus your mind and think whatever you want, be whoever you want. The fact that we generalize about groups in some cases is very reasonable and necessary. In other cases, it could be wrong. Just like you could judge an individual wrong, you can judge a group to be wrong. But groups can have distinguishing characteristics that make them.
What's a white distinguishing characteristic?
To me, like when you start to getting into issues of race, people are so varied by
I think
even when you do the
more,
genetic breakdown,
you
like
could say more.
scientifically.
There's like a German culture, and I think of German culture as being kind of uptight. When I encounter Germans here, they're very rule following, very strict people. They don't seem very warm. And I come from a Jewish or German family. On my dad's side, it's half German, half English. So I see some of that within my own family dynamic on that side. And that's a real thing. Like, that exists.
Oh, absolutely. Because a lot of these groups, of course, have certain cultural sources, like, German Protestants versus like, Irish Catholics and stuff like that immigrated, and they had cultures and they had communities that had those values, and a lot of that gets pushed into the political realm in
But-
terms of like what they viewed the
But if
role of the
if I-
church and the state to be, and so on and so forth. So there's
Yeah.
all sorts of different cultural groups emanating from all over the place that have kind of general characteristics, but it ends up getting so mixed and so melted that you can't even
Yeah.
generalize anymore.
Right. And then
So why
Germans
do
come
it?
over here and they go into different regions and maybe have different outcomes too, second, third generation. But now if I say a similar thing about Jewish culture, what I just said about Germans, then I'm racist.
Right. Anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
And this is what it really bugs me. It's like a particular pet peeve because there's this anti-defamation league and there's these hyper sensitive like people that if you say anything about Jewish people or generalize about Jewish people, you're automatically in the Nazi anti-Semitic bucket. And what it does is it stifles any conversation about like the nature of the relationship between the United States and Israel and like Israeli policies and the history of Israel and maybe their treatment of the Palestinians or like their role in the world or whatever, like, why can't we talk about that? It's like a total taboo topic. And the fact is that because there are a lot of prominent Jewish people, I think in charge of a lot of big media companies and news organizations, they have the power to cancel people.
I'm just a little less sensitive about this whole like treatment of the Palestinian thing. It's like, well, in certain cases, might makes right, and you just have to get over that. That's just the way of the world. I don't, if you conquer a country or take over, and you're tougher, I mean, you're just going to be the ones in charge. So, not that we don't want to be humane in everything in our current Western standards, but I don't know. I just can't get worked up about that too much. But maybe if I were over there and I saw it, I don't really know much about it. Again, part of the reason I don't know much about it is because it's censored. I don't think that I could go online and Google and research for 3-4 hours and get a rounded picture of the situation. I don't think that would be possible because it's all so buried.
Yeah, I think you probably can if you really dig into it. And again, it's only my business when you're asking me to
fund it
through taxation.
Right.
Like, I don't really care about,
honestly. I mean, I'm so exhausted by all this. Like, we have to care about every crime that's happened in every little hellhole of the world. It's too much. It's too much for humans to deal with.
And you have to connect all the dots to do the grievance archaeology of who did an injustice to who, like, X hundred years ago in order to virtue signal your allegiance and fidelity to justice. Like, if I could see, certainly if you're from that region and your family feels like an injustice was done to you, then yeah, you should argue and you should demonstrate for what you want. But like, this is exhausting.
It is
to me.
exhausting.
It is effing exhausting.
So exhausting. And I think it brings us down and it demoralizes us. And I think that's partly this Kanye thing. I think it's meant to demoralize, to watch a man be canceled like this. And I really liked Anomaly's take on this. You sent this to me too. He had he did a couple of different videos where he went through Kanye's different interviews and broke them down. And I didn't watch them, but you pointed me to a timestamp on one of those analyses where he was just saying, look, hey, let's stop saying poor Kanye. Let's start lifting him up and saying, you know what? Only evil people are miserable. Good people are not miserable. Good people are rewarded by being good and telling the truth. You are just rewarded by reality for that. And I believe that. And so to stop being like pummeled and like, oh, he's being canceled and talk to it about like the poor man. Well, actually, let's be really happy for him for having the courage to stand up to all of this, because courageous people get their just desserts too,
Yeah.
And it may take some time, but
being good is the right thing.
being
Doing
good is the right thing. Why?
Is its reward.
Not because of some disconnected. I mean, at least this is what Ayn Rand said. It's not because of some disconnected gift you're going to get in heaven when you're dead. Being good is good for your soul and your self-esteem and your general happiness. And being good is telling the truth. And in his case, he felt the need to speak out and say some of the stuff and do some of the stuff. And he's right to follow his own conscience, speak his mind and be honest and be true to himself. So he could not have been happy had he not done that. Imagine if he hadn't done it. And he was saying he was going insane because he wasn't able to speak out all these years that he's not been saying all this stuff. He has been, this was pre-divorce or whatever. He was keeping a lot of it inside and it was driving him mad. And so let's be happy for Kanye for being a good person and being a hero. Let's be happy for him.
And the other way to look at it is imagine being stifling your own mind and your own independent thinking.
I think most people are doing that right now.
In order to what? In order to what? To be celebrated or feted by, like, your Hollywood friends or some clique somewhere or something that's going to accept you and pretend,
or
you're going to pretend
for money. To have your Adidas contract. I just lost you again for 15 seconds.
Okay. Well, I think maybe we should end it.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything. But I wanted to end on that positive note that I think we should look at him. It does weigh me down and it brings me down and it demoralizes me and it confuses me because I don't want to support racists, but I am supporting free speech and I'm supporting my own principles and I'm supporting fighting the totalitarians who are literally taking over our society as we watch. We need people of strength and courage, people who are fighters. He's one of them. I'm not ready to cancel him in my own mind. I'm supporting him. I'm going to have to look into it, I guess. But
no, let's cancel Fetterman. Let's cancel Biden. Let's cancel Pelosi. I mean, these are evil, twisted people, and we're like focused on Kanye.
I know, right?
Sake. So stupid.
And I'm supposed to feel like if I support him, I'm a bad person. But people out there who support Biden are still worthy of talking to. We're twisted up. We're really twisted up in that sense that we regard free speech and free thinking as the anomaly right now and the thing to be wary of and the thing not to support. And anyone who's going along to get along is doing okay, is doing the right thing. It's the exact opposite.
And I think what's exhausting to me is that the debate is never over the actual idea or a policy.
Yeah.
Or like, what are we going to do? It's always this meta conversation about who are we allowed to listen to?
Right.
Who are we allowed to have an interview with? Who should be even able to access Twitter? I mean, I'm just tired of it. Yeah. Everybody should.
Right. And especially everybody should bank. Everybody should be able to have a bank account. That's just nuts that banks think they can cancel people. It's crazy. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks for joining us this week. Let us know what you want us to talk about. If you have ideas along that score, although we've been told that we're doing a good job picking topics. Anyway,
we've told ourselves that.
Yeah, that was me making that comment. Okay, you can find us on Rumble because we're not on YouTube, but you can find me on Twitter and Facebook at Sunny Lohman, and you can find Doug at theratcap.com, right? Or what's your Twitter?
Just on Twitter at the Ratcap.
The Ratcap. All right, everybody. See you next week.
Of Sunny. It's filled with satire and fun. It's been the demise of bad ideas, and we'll know what's right when she's done. So now as you may lack. It's concise and right and achieves world needs. Guaranteed all your money back. Last time, ready?